Good morning, I'm Harley Schlanger from the LaRouche Organization with the Daily Update for July 2nd, 2021. Today's Friday, so I'm taking questions. There were lots of very, very good questions of importance relating to the strategic situation and other matters, so let's just jump right in on them. The first question was about the statements made by Vladimir Putin in his annual address to the Russian people. Putin at one point said, "War is unlikely, even if Russia would have fired upon and sunk the HMS Defender." So the questioner asked, do you agree with that? Well, there are two aspects. One is Putin's specific response was that everyone knows that a war would be insane, that a war would probably escalate quickly and lead to the annihilation of mankind. And he said, people on both sides realize that's unacceptable and would hold back from taking those actions. I would say, keep in mind what Lyndon LaRouche said. Never underestimate the danger of insanity when you're making assessments as to what likely actions would occur based on any individual event. And what we're seeing is that the provocations being conducted by the British, which appear to be totally coordinated with the Biden administration, are crazy. The idea of confronting Russia in the Black Sea over the Crimea situation, when the people of Crimea voted overwhelmingly to rejoin the Russian Federation, it makes no sense. There's total hypocrisy. How do you say you're for democracy and then say, but you don't like the results of a democratic vote? So the insanity involved is a very serious problem. In fact, former British Ambassador Craig Murray described the provocation in the Black Sea as lunacy. But I think what Putin is counting on is the potential that was opened at Geneva, the conference, the summit he had with Biden, the potential for there to be discussion, dialogue, deliberation, and that in itself might create an environment, as he said, where these broader problems can be resolved. Now, secondly, someone had heard Christine Lagarde, the head of the European Central Bank. She said 70% of European Union citizens support the Green New Deal. And the first question is that true? And then someone else wrote in and said, is it possible for there to be an open debate on the charge or the claim that climate change is caused by human activity? Well, first, Lagarde said is a lie. It's a complete lie, and she probably knows it. There was just the first referendum on this in Switzerland 2 weeks ago, and the vote was no on restrictions around carbon. The people of Switzerland voted against the EU plan for carbon, zero carbon, net zero carbon. And they also voted against doing away with pesticides and fertilizers. So on the face of it, she's either ignorant or lying. Now, there is then there's a statement from the Italian Minister for Ecological Transition named Cingolani, who did tell the truth. He said the green transition could be a bloodbath. Now remember, he's an official in charge of this for a government that supports the Green New Deal. He said that for consumers, it will be a bloodbath due to increases in utility rates. And he also said decarbonization might fail since developing countries will continue to produce CO2 because they want to develop. Well, this is the inherent contradiction in this, that in order to achieve the fraudulent goal of net zero carbon, you'd have to stop all economic development in the so-called developing sector. In other words, a genocidal policy of population reduction would have to go along side by side with the ending of the dreams of electricity in countries in Africa, for example. So it's not going to work. Now, it's worth noting there is a debate going on in Italy. There are between 800 and 1,000 scientists who are actual climate scientists who signed a petition which says there is no climate emergency. And they called for debates to take place at universities. Well, there have been 3 debates so far, and interestingly, not a single defender of the COP26 line or the Paris climate line or the man-made climate change line, not a single defender of that has shown up to debate the scientists who have presented massive documentation about the fraud of the CO2 claim, about the completely inadvisable approach to moving away from fossil fuel, coal, and nuclear. You can read about this on the LaRouche Organization website. We'll have more on this, and you can also look at the second panel from our recent Schiller Institute conference, where we had scientists who answered these questions. So the Europeans, look, there are a lot of people in Europe who have bought the line that we have to go to a green policy, just like the United States. Our job is to educate them and to show them how mistaken they are and how they're being manipulated by a lying media and lying scientists. Now, the third question was, is there any update on Julian Assange? Well, unfortunately, he's still in Belmarsh prison. The reports are that he's not in very good condition. He spends most of his time in solitary confinement, and the U.S. is continuing to press for his extradition to go on trial in the United States, which is a certain death sentence for him. But there was a very significant development this last week. An FBI informant whose testimony was crucial in convicting Assange, or at least bringing the indictments against Assange, has admitted that he lied. Now remember, this is an FBI informant who is identified as the teenager in court papers. His name is Ziggy Thordarson, and he said he made up the claim that Assange asked him to hack a government computer. This was key testimony in the indictment against Assange. Will it change anything? Well, since when did truth matter when the oligarchy is out to destroy a person or destroy the truth? Protect the lies, I should say. We just have to keep fighting. The fight for Assange is one that we have to make our own, because bringing the truth to this gets at the whole fraud of Russiagate, the whole question of the security state that Edward Snowden has exposed. It's crucial for getting at the truth as to what's involved in the destruction of our constitutional republic in the United States. Now, finally, with the July 4th weekend coming up, someone asked me, is the Declaration of Independence still relevant with the adoption of identity politics, the chaos, the censorship, the partisanship, private self-interest, and so on? Does it still mean anything? Well, the answer is of course it does, because this declaration enumerates truths that are not truths of a fact-checking service, but universal natural principles that can be comprehended by any human being who investigates them. This is our precious legacy. We have to protect these self-evident truths from the lies and the censorship. It's important to note that the Declaration of Independence was declared against an oligarchy by people who fled Europe to get away from the oligarchic regimes of private property and the family estates and so on, to a situation where each individual could define his or her horizons and where there was the freedom to do that. So to surrender to the lies of the censors and the social media control and the desire to be popular ahead of being right, that would be a disastrous turning of our backs to the tradition of our founding fathers, who pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their honor to wage this fight for freedom. So I would encourage people to use this 4th of July weekend to read the Declaration of Independence, study it, discuss it with your family and friends. Let's make it, again, a living document, because it's through this kind of recommitment to the creative intervention of our founding fathers that we can lay the basis for the next 50 to 100 years of freedom and development for humanity, based on an American system that grew out of the Declaration of Independence. So enjoy your 4th of July holiday. I'll see you next week. I will not be doing an update on Monday, but I'll see you again next Tuesday.